I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities. Hey friends, and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Curiosities, Cosmic Insights. Today we are diving into spiritual relationships, and this episode's a little bit different. We are a little bit outside of our comfort zones, and I'm not in my usual studio space. I am in the beautiful Harness Creation Studios, and I'm joined by my beautiful, supportive, amazing husband, Michael.
Hello.
And I often see a lot of people come into my space and have treatments with me and sessions with me talking about their dating life or their marriages. Because sometimes when we go through a bit of a spiritual awakening or we get to know ourselves, we feel like we're growing, but sometimes we feel like we disconnect from our partner a bit. And we feel like they're not on the same page or they just don't get us. So I am often asked about my personal life and my marriage with Michael and how we function as a couple, as a family, coming from two very, very different worlds. Because, well, yes, I am a soul therapist and a quantum healer, but Michael is
A tradie.
He is very much in a quote-unquote normal career, normal life. And I guess spirituality wasn't really on your radar before meeting me.
No.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about, like, I guess what life was like before me and your awareness around spirituality and I guess your connection with yourself?
Closest thing to spirituality would have been medieval witches and wizards. My auntie was very into mythological sort of stuff. But and yeah, just a fast-paced life for you. Very much partying and running around trying to do every sport I could and working 10-plus hour days and working on weekends, and yeah, it was just very, very quick, very fast.
Do you feel like you enjoyed doing that, or was it something that you kind of felt like you had to do?
Hard to describe. I think at the time I thought I enjoyed it and thought I was, doing what I had to do, but who really knows when they're being conditioned and when they're actually like doing something they want to do until they break free.
Totally. So am I correct in saying that for a while there you felt like you were disconnected from yourself?
Looking back now, yes. But like I said, back then I thought I was killing it. I thought I was doing great, making money, had heaps of friends, had all the perks, but later found out that it was all just, a bit of an illusion.
Kind of surface level.
Yeah.
When did that kind of change for you or shift for you?
Oh, probably a couple of months dating you, or maybe like after a couple of months of like living in with you, that things started changing. And I think that was more just the more time I spent away from the area I grew up, the more the illusion faded of like who was there, who I was spending time with, what I was actually doing with my quote unquote spare time. Yeah.
And I mean, like when we first started dating, I mean, obviously I didn't come straight off the bat being like, I talk to dead people.
No.
So I guess there had to be that part in every relationship where you start dating someone, you get to know them, and you start to develop a sense of trust. And you start to work on things together. So what was that experience like for you when I did, quote unquote, come out of the spiritual closet to you?
Well, I think it's like you said, it's like any relationship, they sort of give you another perspective on how things have been. So like I said, like I was very fast paced, drinking and partying and, hanging out with friends. But then, when you move out and you're moving with someone else who's been doing things slightly different, some things the same, but, they've obviously stopped doing it a bit quicker than you, then they see where your life's going and you can sort of give each other pointers to help improve each other. And I think with you, it just showed me a different direction to push my energy and not to focus on going everything full pace and actually slowing down a little bit and, focusing on us and family and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we recently had a synastry astrology reading with a good friend of ours. And for those who don't know what a synastry reading is, it is an astrology reading that compares both our natal charts and shows how the different planets in our natal charts react with each other. And you being a Scorpio sun, conjunct Pluto, I mean, it's kind of programmed into you to be really accepting and understanding of the spiritual world. Do you feel like that's something that you just kind of took in your stride?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is in the stars or whatever, but I tend to sort of take everything as it comes. I don't really have a discretion against anything unless it gives me a reason to.
That's fair, yeah. I mean, most of our friends are like, you're very, very chilled person.
Yeah, just try to understand and try and take it as it comes.
Was there any part of you when I came out and said, yeah, I talk to spirits and I'm a trance channel and all the things, was there any part of you that was like, fuck, she's clearly mentally ill?
No, not really, because I mean, like even younger, like mum and my auntie used to like, they'd buy the newspaper or the magazine that would have like the Scorpio's time of the month or whatever, and they'd like show like what they were going to do or if they were going to get money and all that. And that shit used to like intrigue me a little bit because I used to be like, oh, wonder how good they're going to get it this week. And, how accurate it actually was. And a lot of the time it did surprise me, like how accurate some things were. And I was like, this is weird. But I mean, it was always like like an intrigue. It wasn't like what witchcraft is this?
Yeah. Just kind of piqued your curiosity.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, as I kind of went on my journey into embracing who I am and what I do and what I can do, you were always really supportive, even if you didn't really understand. And I think that was something for me that, was healing in my relationships, or healing for me in terms of all of the other relationships I'd been in, because I felt like all of my past relationships, I never felt safe to be who I really was. Whereas you really provided that safety and that support that I felt like I can be who I am and I'm not going to be criticized or judged or be told I'm crazy. So I think that was, really eye-opening for me, but also as I stepped into my journey, it kind of piqued your curiosities more and more.
I was interested to try things and what things would actually work for me, because I tend to struggle finding things that I either like or get me to not think.
And I guess as I continued my journey and it did pique your curiosity, you kind of started feeling like you wanted to catch up or like grow together.
Yeah, like there was definitely procedures that I wanted to try now that I had a bit of an interest following you. Like one that you introduced us to was the light. I can't remember what it's called. Light therapy.
Oh, Lucia Lightwaves.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good because I tend to like, I know it's like, what was it, the front half of the brain? That's like human side. Human side's trying to think of like analytical.
Oh, like your logical side of the brain.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it obviously stopped you thinking of your logical side and actually was projecting things and like letting things come out.
Through your like creativity and stuff. Yeah.
And then same with the sound one as well. Sound healing was good.
Yeah.
Because you got to just sit there and, listen to vibrations and it was just relaxing.
And have you had any sort of profound realizations or experiences through those modalities?
Like I want to keep trying them because I know that like they are the ones that have like shown my logical side that there's something there, and I feel like that's what I bend towards very strongly. So in terms of like curiosity, those ones are peaked because those ones have shown me the most evidence.
Yeah. Well, the thing about like sound healing and stuff as well is the vibrations that move through our body and align with our energetic frequencies. So sometimes people that can feel really in their heads and are stuck in their logical side, things that have a sensation like sound healing and vibration can pull themselves out of their head and into their body more and more. Do you feel like that's kind of what it did for you?
Now you tell me. Oh yeah, 100%. That's why I was drawn to it.
Yeah.
Not knowing why it drew it to me, but yes, that's what drew it to me.
Are there certain things that I was like stepping into that you were like, fuck yeah, sign me up? And certain things that you were like, you're on your own, babe?
Not really. I don't know. Has there been anything that I've said all no to?
Not that I can think of. I mean, like, even stuff like, you know, yoga and Reiki, you're like, fuck, I'm going to struggle, but I'll give it a go. Like, yeah. I want to see how I try.
Yeah. Like, I'm hopeful for the experience.
And do you feel like watching me go through my journey was kind of like a bit of motivation for you to start yours?
Yeah, 100%. Watching you get happier and more confident, yeah, really wanted me to be more confident in that as well, because I know that I do struggle with that. And yeah, make sure you don't leave me behind.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like a lot of couples that, you know, because I work with men and women, theys and thems, and it's very often that, especially with women, they find themselves like going on this transformational journey and feeling like their husband is back at the starting line and they're like heading towards the finish line, and they start questioning whether they should still be in this relationship, or they've outgrown each other and start questioning their whole life together. Is that something that was a fear for you?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say it was a fear. It was like an obvious choice. So, I mean, if anyone else is in that situation, like, don't force the partner to play catch up, because they'll very quickly be like, I don't like any of this. And they're going to retaliate and backlash, where you didn't do that. You sort of just went, do you want to try this with me? And I was like, oh, no, not today. I'm fine. And then, you know, after a week or two, you're getting more happy. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And I was like, well, why didn't you invite me? And I was like, and you were like, oh, okay. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, I'll come. And, you know, it was like just that perspective of like sitting back and watching you change and grow is what convinced me to try more.
And is that sort of the advice that you'd give other people in that situation?
100%.
Because sometimes I know as women, it's hard because, especially with like a maternal instinct, we want to help. We want you to be the best that you can be because we can see how good everything is and we can see all this potential, but we can get kind of pushy and kind of naggy. And we're like, why don't you just do the thing? Like, why can't you help yourself? But sometimes when we do that, it has the opposite effect.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's like I said, like when you started your journey, as far as I knew, you were the happiest you would be. Like that was you. And watching you change and watch you get happier, it was, you know, making me go, well, am I the happiest I am?
Yeah.
Again, if you're saying this with your other partner, you wouldn't be like, you need to change, because it's going to make them go, well, I'm the best I can be.
Yeah.
It's like they've got to witness someone else close to them changing so that they can think, well, maybe I should change as well.
Yeah, almost like that leading by example.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like you starting your journey contributed to our relationship? Like that we were on the same page and we were growing together, and like how did things change for you?
I provide you stability.
Yes, you do.
Which is to contrast to what I said my past life was. It was very, you know, non-stable. And then I think you give me what I try to give you, which is like that unconditional love. So not worrying about who's going to make more money, who's going to, you know, do more, housework or whatever, and it's not going to affect how much output of affirmation or just love in general.
Yeah. And like there was even like you even sent me like a reel at one point from Brene Brown that was talking about like it's not, relationships aren't always 50-50. And sometimes it's 80-20. And the point of like being, I guess, in that loving relationship is knowing that sometimes you've got to give more to support each other. And when you do this as a team, like it kind of shifts your perspective a bit more.
Yeah. Because I mean, sometimes you just don't have that love to give. Like, you know, work and all that's just taken way too much out of you. And you sort of have to rely on that person to be like, look, I'm not doing great. You need to pick up the slack.
And I guess that's where it's important to like have that love and trust and understanding in yourself, because you can't always rely on your partner to provide that sense of safety or stability or love. You know, I feel like that's something that, you know, in my opinion anyway, that we've taught each other. Because for a long time, at the start of our relationship, I was like, I need you to love me. I need you to love me more because I don't love myself. And once I did start to love myself, you were like, maybe I should love myself. I like how this looks. I'm going to try this on. But in turn, like that made us love each other more. Yeah,
that's definitely, the more you love yourself, the more love you can give.
I feel like a bit of like RuPaul, like if you don't love yourself, how the hell you gonna love somebody else? But even in terms of like, I guess healing through spiritual relationships, like we have come into contact with many different people that we've shared many different relationships with, you know, ex-partners, friends, family. Are there certain relationships that you feel you needed to experience in order to come to an awareness or an understanding?
Yes. Probably into not as great detail, but in terms of, I think it was more just as we got together with, you know, just sort of seeing how friends are meant to treat you and how little friends or how small of a number of friends you actually have was a big one. Just because, you know, I grew up around a big group of guys that would play footy, would drink together, would do all of it. Sometimes even work together. And then, you know, finding out that, you know, one person's got to leave and one person gets a partner. And just because those two people have left, the whole group just disbanded. And even though you thought all of them had your back and you were friends and you used to hang out, you just call them up and it'd be fine. None of them really did that. So, yeah, that was definitely a bit of loss of trust.
So do you kind of feel like you needed to have those friendships to kind of understand what friendships you're looking for now?
Yeah. What type of trust I can sort of build myself around, I guess.
Because I mean, like, you have a lot more solid friendships now than what you probably once had that were all very surface level. Whereas now, because I went down a similar route, right? Like growing up, I was trying to numb my senses and hide who I was, repress who I was. And I did that by partying and hanging out with people that were doing the same thing. And, you know, the trouble with doing that or surrounding yourself with people that are just as quote unquote lost or consider themselves lost and broken as you do, you're all just kind of triggering each other in different ways and hurting each other because hurt people do hurt people. So coming through my relationships and my friendships, I had to really come to an understanding of who's my friend when things go wrong, but also who's my friend when things are going right. Because sometimes people aren't there for both of them. And if they're there for only the bad times, a lot of the time they enjoy seeing someone worse off than them. And when they are only there for the good times, they don't have the emotional availability to really support you in the way that you perhaps support them. So I became really picky about who I spend my time with and who I let into my world on a very personal level. And I think when you met me and you saw that, you know, I didn't have this huge group of friends and I just had very close people that I would surround myself with, you kind of saw the difference.
Honestly, at first I just thought it was girls being girls. That idea of they're always with each other in the bathrooms and talking out their stuff, I thought that was normal. And that's why I think being so closed off worked. It was like, you know, I'll talk about it more later.
But talk about it with who?
Yeah, well, that was the big question.
Yeah. Well, I guess like life really kind of turned upside down for you when we got together. Because, I mean, yeah, not only were you somewhat introduced into more of an awareness of the spiritual, trying to balance that logical, but also I had a pack of kids. What was that like?
Scary at first. But after, spending time with you and going out on dates and whatnot, it was like, whatever. It doesn't matter who's with her, what she's got. I mean, didn't care about anything else.
We often get teased. And I say teased in like a loving way because all of our friends that are married, you know, they always joke around and say that you make the other husbands look bad because you are such a devoted, loving husband that, you know, carries my bags and like ties my shoelaces and like does all the things that, you know, a quote unquote, that's how you treat a princess sort of thing.
Honestly, like carrying the bags thing, I just thought that was just every man's job. Didn't know that was out of the ordinary. Tying the shoelaces were a bit much, but I think I sort of grew to that when you like hurt your foot.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll do it. And then you sort of got used to it and was like,
it just stuck.
This is life. Tie my shoes. Well, you don't need to do that now. You just shake your foot.
I'm just like, hey, shoe, fix.
Try and do that magic trick where it auto ties itself.
But I guess like we do get teased in that way because like so often even when, you know, the couples always have like frustrating moments in life, right? Where you get on each other's nerves. Whereas we kind of like we do, but we don't.
Yeah. We sort it out really quickly.
Yeah. And I think it's like we just like take out the wrestle mat out the back. We're just like, all right, lay into each other. Get all your frustration out. No, I'm kidding, guys. Don't do that. But, you know, I guess like we found that in the synastry reading as well with the astrology was that we value each other's, I guess, feelings way more than anything else. So it's like even if we're frustrated and even if like we experience high levels of fuck you energy, you know, we nip it in the bud really quick and kind of go, okay, like, what do you need? How can I support you?
Yeah, very big on communication.
I guess too, like when we look at relationships and marriages, we look at the people that set the tone for us. And a lot of the time it's like our parents, right? Like there's always that age-old like joke of like, women marry men like their fathers or men marry women like their mothers. And it's something that you can see similarities in some aspects because with conditioning, we tend to either follow suit or we do the complete opposite. And this is something that has kind of like piqued my curiosity recently because I look at my parents and their relationship is nothing like our relationship. And, you know, I even look at my dad and my stepmother together now and I'm like, yeah, that relationship's still not quite anything like our relationship. And then I look at your parents and I'm like, yep, no, we don't fit that mold either.
No.
How do you see that sort of stuff?
I I think it was like I was born up in that, like I said before, like conditional love. So I was like, what can you bring to the table? Were you good at school? Were you good at sports? Did you make this many amount of tackles in your football game? It was like, unless you'd done something good, it was just like, have dinner, watch TV, go to bed. There was no communication of love. There was no, yeah.
In having the astrology and synastry reading that I was talking about before, were there parts in that reading that validated the way that you felt our relationship was or is?
Yeah, 100%. It was to the T. It was, it was right on there.
Was there anything that like really stood out for you above anything else?
I think it was more just knowing that we both had each other's backs in certain things. Like we were complete polar opposites in some things, which were like what made us so good. And, the things that we were struggling with, the other person was already really good at. So it was very, quote unquote, yin and yang.
Yeah, no, I thought that too. And I thought it was really interesting, like some aspects that were pointed out where it's like, it kind of showed the contrast of like how good we work together in some things, but then how we can have the potential to hold each other back if we were in sort of, I guess, like the lower frequencies of our signs or a lower energy. Say, for example, like I'm an Aries sun. If I was like inhabiting more of that negative or like arrogant Aries energy, then, I'd have the potential to hold you back in some things and vice versa. Whereas like having that awareness kind of shifted some things. It like was like, okay, cool. Like I understand that. And that makes sense. And this is actually put into words like how we feel. So I thought that was really cool.
I thought the biggest thing was knowing that communication is such a high part in our thing. So that if we didn't communicate, everything would go to shit. But if we did communicate, everything was going to be great.
Yeah. It was like literally had the opportunity to like propel each other forward or the potential to hold each other back depending on whether we communicated or not.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that's pretty fucking simple.
Yeah.
Like,
sounds simple.
Like, do you think that we communicate differently from other couples?
Off experience, some definitely. Just off past friends and their relationships. But I mean, I didn't really have a lot of experience, I guess, in couples communicating. It was all just very generic stuff. So I think we do a lot better than what I thought, considering other people.
Just in terms of like my past relationships, I feel like we communicate a million times better than what I have in any other any other relationship. But in terms of like looking at our relationship compared to like the average person's relationship, like I don't know what the average person's relationship is like. But like from what I experience like through work and through like friends and things like that, I do feel that there's a difference. But I think it has a lot to do with perspective. Because like, again, people talk about you create your reality, right? Like, cool. But really, like, your perspective creates your reality. And if you have the perspective that things are great, then a lot of the time things will rise to that expectation of like, things are great. Like, there's greatness in everything. This is going to be amazing. All the things. 9 times out of 10, it works out. But if you have this perspective of like, the world is shit and it's all going to go to hell and all this stuff's terrible, then chances are like,
you need a new perspective.
Yeah. Like that's what you're creating. And I feel like that was definitely something that came into my awareness with our relationship as well. Because when we got together, you were very disconnected from your emotions because you were conditioned in such a way. And for me, just being like, I just want to feel loved because I can't love myself. I was like, just tell me like that you love me, like that I want to know. And so when I like shifted that perspective to like, you're not emotional enough to you're doing the best you can, and I need to look within myself for that love as well, it shifted things for me because I wasn't putting this huge expectation on you, and I was just kind of accepting you for how you were and accepting the great qualities about you and what maybe I felt was somewhat lacking in a way I found within myself.
And yeah, that just goes back to the whole, like, if I see you start feeling better and you improving yourself and, you don't need that from me, it makes me go, well, maybe I need to try harder.
So like even in me kind of like accepting that you weren't overly emotional kind of made you become more emotional.
Yeah. With not really realizing it.
See, that's kind of interesting as well. Like, yeah, just accepting that I can love myself enough made you go, well, if she loves herself 110%, that means I have to love her 150% so that she actually notices that I love her, like all the things. And then grew off that, I think, because the more that I loved myself and I loved myself 150%, you were like, well, now I have to love her 180%. And just kind of kept going and going, you doing all these beautiful things for me that, our married friends all make fun of. But I think it just really kind of outlines the kind of people that we are or the kind of people we've become.
Just trying to do more for each other.
Yeah. As much as we support each other's growth together, we support each other's growth as individuals.
100%.
Even through our synastry reading and the astrology, like it did show that we have done so much work as individuals, not just in this lifetime, but potentially past lifetimes, that when we came together, we were organized. Like we knew what we were doing. We knew how we worked together and we knew what we could do with our potential together. So it was kind of like, I don't know, I feel like we came into this life like we're not fucking around. We're here to get a job done. And we're here to, up level and upskill.
Well, that's what it showed, didn't it? It showed that we got one shot.
one opportunity.
That it was like, if we didn't communicate, like I said, we're going to hold each other back.
Yeah.
But if we didn't hold each other back, we were going to slingshot
forward.
Yeah,
totally. But I think it's really cool. I feel like if you haven't had a synastry reading before with your partner or like you've never heard of it before, go get one done. Our friend Suki, she is an incredible astrologist.
Very detailed.
She is. She's super detailed. And I'll pop her details in the show notes if anyone wants to go and book a reading with her. She is amazing. But yeah, like it honestly, it shed so much light on like how we function. And even like helping us with our methods of communication.
More of an understanding of like why things are the way they are.
And like talking of past lives, like I've had an experience of seeing a past life that you've been in, but from my understanding, you haven't seen a past life that I've been in.
No, because I very much struggle to relax and get out of my head.
Very true. The lifetimes you have seen have been a bit sporadic.
Yes.
But in saying that, like, do you feel as though there is that familiarity that we have known each other before in a past life?
Yeah. I think that's why after the first little while of us dating, even with you having kids and stuff, I sort of just understood that you were a package deal. And to me, it wasn't a question of like, is it worth it? It was just like, yep.
It's like, we're going to make this work.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be a good thing and sometimes it can be a bad thing depending on, I guess, the person and the relationship. Because, like I've had an ex-partner that I'm like, oh, I feel like we definitely have a past life relationship here. But perhaps, it's not a healthy one because when we had a relationship in this lifetime, it wasn't a healthy relationship. So it was kind of like I had to kind of go through that relationship in this life to see what patterns were replaying and decide whether I was going to kind of end the karmic cycle or whether I was going to continue it. But I feel like, deciding that I was going to end the karmic cycle, you were like my reward.
Yeah.
In terms of like soul partners and soulmates, like where do your beliefs stand on that? Do you feel like there's one person for everyone, or do you feel like there's potentially multiple people for someone depending on where they are in their journey?
Like there is a potential because, you know, like you hear those stories of like people growing old together and then, or not even getting old, they get to sort of middle age and then one of them dies and they, you know, they're heartbroken and all that sort of stuff. And then they find someone that's not necessarily identical, but in their values and everything are pretty much the exact same. And they're like, oh my God, like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there is a chance that there is more than one. Not necessarily like you're always going to just bump into them and be like, oh my God, you're better. I'm going to jump to that one. Like, no, but there is a potential, I reckon, that there is more than one.
You know, like you said, you know, what if you have the perfect relationship and then like something happens to that person and they pass away, and then you meet someone else and you're like, oh, this is the perfect relationship. And then you have this like, I guess this thought process of like, was the first person my soulmate or is the second person my soulmate? I really don't think quote unquote soulmates exist. I think it's more like you meet people for a reason and it's up to you. Like it's that free will of like what you decide to do with the potential of that relationship. And that could be anything, you know, like we potentially could have gotten into a relationship years before we actually did. But if we got into a relationship when we first had the opportunity, I don't think we would still be together now. Like we were very different people in very different situations and had very different knowledge and experiences at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, meeting down the road later on and then going, okay, like, yeah, let's actually do this. I think it happened for a reason at the right time.
Yeah, it was like years. We actually communicated and then it was like nothing. We both went our separate ways and then came back.
Yeah. So do you feel like being in a romantic relationship can help you heal as an individual as well as a couple?
Yes. I guess just having that self-reflection of like, you know, seeing your partner do better and then you wanting to do better for yourself, which in turn ends up helping the relationship anyway. Yeah, I think just having that extra person in there just brings that different perspective on yourself.
It's kind of like that theory, like everything's a mirror. Everything in life is reflected back to us. And so even being in a relationship with someone that, you know, is either really supportive or maybe they're not, but it's mirroring something back to you. It's reflecting something back to you, whether it's like, okay, I need to learn to support myself here, or I need to learn to be supportive of others here, or whatever the case may be. But I feel like it does definitely help having someone reflect and mirror things back to you.
Yeah, I mean, and with that too, it's not like, you know, if you weren't giving me words of affirmation, whatever it is, like you weren't saying it enough, that it's not necessarily like you need to change. That could just be, like you said before, me saying, well, I need to love myself more.
Yeah.
So you can't always blame the partner. Like it's not always the case, but sometimes, you know, the whole look at yourself before you look outwards sort of thing.
Yeah. Because sometimes, you know, we are just looking for someone else to blame. And sometimes it can be a bit of a slap in the face that needs to get our attention to be like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's me. Maybe I am the problem.
What's that thing? It's like, watched on that show. If you can't spot the crazy person on the bus, maybe you're the crazy person.
Right? But yeah, like, no, I totally get that. And, you know, this episode isn't like, hun, if you're in a toxic relationship, you're in a toxic relationship. Nothing's going to change that. Safety is important. By no means are we condoning abusive relationships or shifting blame. But there are elements within a relationship that do mirror back our own triggers and our own needs to heal. But yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining me here, babe. I know it's like
way outside my comfort zone.
Yeah, but I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
For everyone else, I hope this episode has been insightful and has shared a little bit about how my relationship works with my husband, but also how relationships can work and grow together despite coming from different worlds or having different beliefs. Until next time. This is your Earthside Spirit Guide signing off. Thanks for joining me for today's Cosmic Insight. If you're ready to unleash the magic of your soul and want to work with me, you can send me a message on Instagram at elle.embers or visit my website, elleembers.com.